million plus of federal money that will reinstate our fire department and the EMS, or not, depending upon who you are listening to at any given time. And it is my feeling that $8 million is directly connected to the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of Taylor. And I have been, in fact, the majority of the council has been, maybe all of us, have been attempting to accomplish that very thing. This money, if it weren't for this money, we would have shut down and did 2 of our fire stations. We would have laid off 2/3 of our firefighters, and we did. And this is an opportunity to get those people back, and so I'm suggesting that we move forward with it. You've all had a chance to read it.
I think it's great, I think it's really good, I agree, as everyone knows, I think it's, if we have any way of doing it, finding any funding to have our fire department whole, it's a wonderful thing for the community, and we need it.
Since we're on the closed door meeting now, the timeline on the SAFER grant of actually accepting it, can you relive that for us?
Well,
There seems to be
the
some.
email that was spread out, the administrative email that was spread out was incompatible, I guess, with the comments that were made by the same lady in Ms. Bannis in conversation. Again, there was clear direction that there was no letter required or notice required to remove or rescind.
So
We had submitted a letter to them because we had the arbitration award that came out after the change in the SAFER grant application. We got the arbitration award, those costs were not incorporated into it, and the union told us they were not voting on our proposal the way it was submitted. So we couldn't address those promotions as part of our current staffing. Okay, not SAFER grant staffing. We couldn't meet the obligations under the current staffing. Okay, obviously we have a division amongst what money we believe is there and what we should spend within the budget numbers. So that as it pertains to that. So we sent the letter out. We were told at the very same day, you can't rescind at this point in time. We're too far down the process. So when you get notified, you're going to have to tell us that you don't want it or you don't accept it. We began the process at that point in time to make a determination whether or not to accept or deny. So, because we had to deal with the notification. How are we going to do what we're going to deal with?
Okay, so have we officially been notified that we have been, at least received the award? Or we've been awarded?
We got an official notification from them. So, it's on the website. I mean, it's posted on the website, awarded.
So
how do we
know?
know?
If we.
Yeah, there's a difference, I'm sorry,
Chief?
No, go ahead, Chief.
there's a difference between a notification and an actual award.
Okay,
The notification is the intent to award, and then the award is given, that's a congressional notification.
Does it clearly state on the website, no awarded? And I'm pretty sure it does, and we've gotten congressional notification, so
See, I didn't
we
get
got
it.
notification from Center 11 that they had received
So we
notification.
have been awarded the grant,
Correct.
okay.
so now how many days do we have to either accept or reject?
We have
How many? 30, from what date?
30 by theory, but
30 by theory, June 8th.
she said if
But
we need more
if we
time.
Extension, we can get an extension.
June 8th?
June 8th?
July 8th.
Right, 30 from June 8th.
Oh, 30 from June
So has anyone been on the FEMA website looking at the SAFER
No.
grant? Because I did, and I think it's interesting reading. It's kind of complicated, but I did. I do see on there, because I heard the rumors that it has to be fire suppression, 90% of what they do. So how does that work? Are we just gonna?
Well, obviously, Madam Chair, that's probably just a different argument for a different day. If we were to take the SAFER grant and we were to return full staffing, we would be arguing down the road. I've been very adamant with Chief and with them at that point in time of not dealing with transporting, because we're gonna be faced with the same position 2 years from now, but to deal with things that need to be done within the public infrastructure of fire emergency response. which is again, dealing with potentially hydrant maintenance, dealing with school education, dealing with other things that provide us with opportunities in which to get our staffing out and working on different things other than just going back to doing what we were doing and pushing the buck down the road 2 years.
Okay, but in that light, if we were to figure out a way to accept the grant, my question is, based on going on the site and reading, just trying to educate myself before we get into this, and that is that on there were grants given to communities that were combination fire departments, and I know it's really technical and,
So,
you
yeah.
know, but so can we in this 2-year process, if we were getting this grant, could we begin developing that again, like with explorers and all those things, because it defined what a department combination could be, so that we can cover this safety net when we don't have the grant? Do you know what I mean? Like start developing volunteer firefighters again, so that we do have fire coverage for all 3 stations?
I would have to.
Within the constraints of our 5-year deficit elimination plan, you know what I mean?
I would have to read into it myself. I
Yeah.
haven't researched it.
So do you honestly believe in 2 to 3 years that we're gonna be in the same position we're in right now?
If we maintain the same cost structure, absolutely.
You don't think the money's gonna go up, you don't think the economy's gonna be better, you don't think the city's gonna be on any better footing in 2 years than they are today?
You're suggesting that we sustain the same cost structure for 2
No,
more
you're
years?
working on contracts right now and you've changed them and they're
They are.
different. And we voted on different ones and
They're just not significant enough changes.
not enough.
So we completed the Safer Grant application. Was that completed by your office or by your office?
One and the same.
Well, who eventually sent this final submittal? Fire. So when you guys reviewed it and adjusted the numbers to accommodate for how many people? I mean, $8.2 million.
We were told at that point in time that Safer Grant needed to be count for all people, so.
So the expectation at that point in time of the application of all then would have been returning to transporting. Well, what were you gonna do with them?
Been asking that question since the time period. Whether you go back to doing more first response, or whether, as I just said, you put them on tasks that need to be accomplished. We can't, the water department can't do and hasn't done hydrant maintenance in decades, probably ever. I mean, they do phenomenal, we check to make sure it breaks free, we check the change, we put a coat on, paint on it, we grease up the fittings, but we don't do hydrant maintenance. Those are part of the process we talked about, not replacing. Fire department, when we came in, was getting charged 80 grand out of their budget to pay for hydrant maintenance. We could, Chief Portis couldn't figure that out when he was chief and said, well, why is that there? We talked to Craig Lyon at times, he said, well, it's just always been there because we do it for him. I said, well, why don't we do it? But there was a clause in the contract that says that. So we can continue to do 1128 and let the water department continue to do their level of hydrant maintenance. That doesn't mean that we can't have fire do the level of hydrant maintenance that's necessary, which is pressure flow testing and making sure that everything's working. That's kind of what we talked about. We were talking about a couple weeks ago with the council meeting that we're gonna run into bad ones, and it's gonna be $10,000 to $15,000 a pop, and we're probably gonna run into a lot of them with 3,800 hydrants in the city.
But even if you did hydrant maintenance, I mean, what are you talking, 2 people, 1 person to do that across the city?
You got 3,800 hydrants in the city.
Yeah, but what's the, you have to develop.
You don't wanna do it in the
a process.
winter
I mean,
time.
You can't do it, yeah.
So
And you're not gonna do it, I mean, you're not gonna get 3,800 checked in 1 year, so you're gonna have to have some kind of rotation in there.
come up with other things to do. I know it's part of training, additional training.
So we don't wanna do transport.
It was a decision that was discussed, it wasn't just a unilateral decision made, it wasn't ever the intent to transport, we got the safe grant. We sat down with the chief
Well,
and Jesse
if I could
Kriegel.
interrupt just for 1 second. I can only tell you what we heard in here, and I have not reviewed the Safer Grant application, but I understood it to always include transport.
It clearly just says it's not, doesn't.
I don't know what it says. I can't tell you what it
I
says.
understand, I'm telling you, you read it, it doesn't discuss transport, it discusses fire suppression activities. We sat down with the chief and Jesse Kriegel, and the chief even acknowledged that if we get this grant, we're not going to transport right away. We're not ready to do it, and that there needs to be improvement in
Right
transport.
away. I mean, right away could be, 30, 60 days down the road.
No, we're talking about years down the road. And this is a discussion that was between the mayor, myself, the chief, and Jesse Kriegel.
So
There
you
was
were
no
gonna make that
intention.
decision that we're just not gonna have it.
Pardon me?
So you guys, you few people just make that decision that we're just